Okay, so here is a current setup. You might be familiar with this from an older video, but essentially feed and return from the in-tank pump up to the surge, which has then got another pump in it, feed and return here. So the plan is to have my feed and return here not visible, essentially to run underneath the bodywork panel here, so underneath the car, and then to the surge tank, which is going to come back here somewhere. And then the feed and return from the engine, I want them to be, again, underneath the car and feed in just below where the seat is there, hook along that line and then forward as they do now. So they'll still be in the car, because obviously my setup down to the front is really good and works nicely, but this whole bit of the back is just a bit rubbish, and this is loose, so it rattles and stuff, which is not great. So we'll sort all that out. So yeah, that's the reason why we're doing this little update. It should be a little interesting one. I'm going to have to drop the tank down a bit to get those hoses in for the feed and return, but that shouldn't be that much of a problem. So first things first though, I need to design the plate that this is going to sit on. So we're going to do some CAD. So I'm going to use some CAD. I use Onshape because I have access to it. I don't use it very often. I'm not that good at it, but I should be able to draw a square plate with some holes in it. So yeah, let's do this, and we'll send this off for lasering. I could easily do this on on eBay, just order like a square plate and drill some holes and stuff in it, but it'd be really nice to have this CAD'd up and it'd be absolutely spot on. So let's draw this in CAD. Right then, this plate is done. Probably not the easiest and quickest way to do this in CAD, but it's the way I know how, and that's fine for me. So what I've got then is a 3mm thick plate that is roughly the right size. Big centre hole for just taking weight out of it. The ones that are in a circle here are essentially for mounting the actual swell pot to, and then these 4 on the outside are for fixing to the car. And then I added just these little extra ones just in case I want to like cable tie a cable to it, or mount a P-clip or something to it. I can use those additional holes if I need to. So I think that is ready. So we will send that off to the laser cutters, and yeah, we will have a look at getting that installed, because that's probably going to be the first job. Right, so I had some quotes back from the laser cutters, and believe it or not, they wanted 95 quid to cut out that 3mm piece of aluminium that's 180 odd mil in size. So I printed it out and I'm going to cut it out of this piece of paper. This is 1:1 size, and obviously just drop it onto a piece of aluminium. I'm not going to use this piece, so I'm going to get something slightly thicker. I just wanted to know if I could use this as a backup. So let's get this cut out, and then we'll get a 3mm piece of ali to put it on, which I feel like could be a bit stronger. Right guys, you join me a couple of days later. My ali took a little bit of time to come from eBay. 3mm aluminium, probably very low grade, but it doesn't need to be anything fancy for this. Put my template on it. I'm going to center punch all the holes. Obviously the CAD gives me all of those, so it's super easy. And then I'll use my jigsaw blade to cut these out. These are really good for aluminium. If you've ever tried using like a 1mm cutting disc for ali, I just find it grabs and it's really horrible. So yeah, and cutting out these curves and stuff will be super easy on the jigsaw. So we'll do that in a moment. Oh yeah, I also bought some rubber spacers. So these will go between the body and this panel, just to sort of cancel out any potential nasty vibrations. So they'll sit on there, work to charm. Good job, Amazon. Albeit some of them I could go really big if I needed to, but we've got some options. In other news, the car went for its MOT this week and it passed with flying colours. I did have to swap my cat. Obviously I run a D-cat for the vast majority of the year. So put the cat in, jobs are good and still on the car right now, so that's all good. But yeah, no advisories, straight through, easy peasy. I did give it a little bit of a poke on the way home, turned it up a little bit, you know, just sort of building confidence in the car post rebuild. One issue I noticed is my map switch. The Emerald comes with 3 positions. I had a high with pops and bangs and a low, and I've lost the low setting. It seems to have just all defaulted to high. Not entirely sure why. So I've looked in the actual Emerald software itself, and all the settings are the same for the boost map. So yeah, I need to sort of figure out my map 1 and go back to turning it down. I mean, it's, you know, at the end of the day, you can turn it down with your right foot, can't you? Just don't tip in quite so much. But yeah, it'd be nice to have the map do it for us. So anyway, so that's the car updated. Let's get this centre punched and cut out, and then we'll position it in the car. There we go then, plate made. This will actually be the underside, that'll be the top side once I take that off. So with that done, we can leave that to one side. You need to whip out the surge tank, or the swell pot, whatever you want to call it. We'll take that out next, and then we'll have a look at either mounting this or routing the fuel lines under the fuel tank. Probably do that first. I don't want to do all the drilling until I know I can get the hoses in. Right, I've positioned the camera very carefully, so swell pot's out of the car, it's empty, and I've positioned it in the centre of my 3 available holes. Now I've done that intentionally. I've put the camera where it is intentionally because the 4 inlet and outlet ports aren't pointing in the right direction. What I'd need to do is twist them round, but if I just move it round one bolt hole, then they're going to be too far round that way. So this is why I added the additional hole at the bottom. If I move it that orientation, somewhere like that, you can now see that these will all fall in the right way, somewhere like that. So what my plan is to have, ignore the electrical connection for now, have them all essentially pointing one there, one there, one there, and one there, all pointing in the same direction. So that all the lines go forward rather than off at jaunty angles. It'll mean for the OCD among you, this on the base plate won't be straight, I don't think, unless I can maybe twist the bottom. I'll have a little look, but I really want the top bit to be straight in a line, so all the lines point forwards together. That's the plan. So I need to get the holes now drilled for the base plate to go in the car. Right guys, I've just done something in the car. I didn't film it because it was really awkward. I'm going to try my best to explain. So I have fitted my fuel hoses on top of the tank. See those 2 silver ones there? Feed and return from the in-tank pump. They run along the top of the bench underneath this metal panel and just terminate under the floor at the moment, just dangling down. Now, the only compromise is these two here are now rubber-lined fuel hoses as opposed to like PTFE. And the only reason for that is underneath this panel is incredibly tight, and I couldn't get the conversion from rubber to PTFE to fit without just squashing stuff, and I wasn't happy with it. So what I've done is essentially run these two hoses down here, which will be rubber, and they terminate just down there at the moment, dangling out. And then from there, I'm going to convert everything to PTFE. So I'm hoping the fuel smells won't be too bad, because those two hoses now are outside the car, not inside the car. This is what I tried, essentially, to get these two onto the tank, then convert it to PTFE, and then run these two. Now, these two hoses are actually slightly thinner than the rubber stuff, but it's these fittings that are quite chunky. You know, you try and get that over the top of the tank where there's just no room. I thought about maybe having them halfway down and in there's a slightly bigger recess, but then they'd just be completely inaccessible. And I thought, if I'm going to have a bit of rubber hose, you know, maybe even there, I thought, well, I might as well make the rubber hose that long and then convert to PTFE sort of further down, which is what I've done. So all of the stuff that I just showed you in there, rubber hose outside the car, obviously on top of the tank, will then convert to PTFE. That's the plan. So now I know that everything fits, we can start drilling some holes in the car, because I was a bit reluctant to start drilling the boot for all the fittings and everything without having put those lines in, because I was just worried that they were going to fit. But now I know they are, and they do fit, we can crack on. Right, holes drilled, and don't worry, I will put some anti-rust treatment on them in a moment. But for now, I just want to get the other ones drilled. So I need this in its rough position. So pop the bungs on. I've got 4 completely different size bolts for this. I will knit I use a place in Rugby called Arrow Engineering. They have like a really good supply of bolts and stuff. So yeah, typical, half of them are not long enough. So it's just to hold it in position for now, so I'm not even going to bolt it down. It's just so it doesn't move. There we go. Right, and then this, again, is only bolted in 1 bolt at the moment, so that's fine. There we go. Right, we're in position there. So I'm going to drill my 4 holes here. I'll just show you what I've got and what I'm planning for that. Right, so Torx always do me a good deal on parts. So what I have got here is a 90-degree bulkhead connector. So they're obviously going to go through the body, and the 90 will point, you know, in the right direction forwards. And obviously the relevant fitting for it underneath the car to join to essentially what these 2 lines that are in the car already are. That's where they're going to join to. And then inside the car, all you'll see is essentially the top half of the bulkhead connector, and that'll be sitting there, and there'll be 4 of them. So all you'll see is this, the plate, obviously the wire, and 4 fuel hoses going into the floor, and that's it. Everything else will be out of sight. So yeah, that's the plan. So the question is now, what size hole do I need to drill for these? And I think I'm just going to do them in a reasonably sensible pattern on the floor to keep it nice and tidy. Right, 4 of those fittings in. So obviously all the paint went off. I put a bit of Hammerite on top of the Hydrate 80 that I put in as well, so it should be good for rust. I decided to put my riv nuts in these to give me a bolt down option, so rather than having to take the whole plate off the car, I can just unbolt it from here now. So that was a better option, I think. So that's done. Yeah, so the next thing really is to make some lines. I'll do that off camera because, yeah, it's boring. You don't want to see me make four lines, but I'll cut back to that in a second. And then we need to figure out all the sort of routing of everything underneath and linking it all back up again. And of course, hopefully a bit of a test to see if we are leak free. And then of course I haven't forgotten that I still need to change the pump in here, which I will do. But yeah, I want to get all this done first. So yeah, let's cut forward now then to the lines all made up. Right, pipes made up, apart from one. I thought the fitting that I already had was the right angle, but I think it's too much. I think that's like a 120 or maybe even more than that. I'm not sure what that is, but I need it to be like this one. You can see the difference. Those are the ones at the front there are what I've got, and the one at the back is what I need. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to wait for that last one, but you get the general idea. Fairly minimalist in terms of pipe work and stuff, way better than what it was before, having all this stuff coming over the back and everything. And of course it's actually bolted down now. Okay, right, so I'll come back to that when it's done, and obviously when we're tightened up now, we don't need to see that anymore. So the next thing is to get underneath and see the upside down bit of these, and obviously route them forward. That's the plan. Right, so underneath then, we'll get you into position. There we can see I've put my little fittings on the bulkhead connectors. So we need to run them essentially down to here. I've popped one in here already. This is like the original hole for the fuel feed and return that you would have had originally. Trouble is that two of these next to each other is far too close. So I'm not going to be able to put them through both original holes. And I would like to try and put the fuel filter, I think, in the original location. So I'll put another hole essentially here, another one of these fittings there somewhere. Fuel filter this side, nice and accessible underneath where it should have been. Yeah, and then it's just a case then of making up all the right length hoses to go to our fittings up there. So pretty straightforward. I'm going to route the stuff down through this gap essentially and forward. Looks like there's plenty of room, far enough away from the exhaust. Job's a good one. So first thing I think is to get this hole drilled, and then all we've got to do is make lengths of hose. Right then, second bulkhead fitting done. So they're both in there. I made use of an old drilling that I made for the battery tray that I had in there before, so I didn't have to drill any new holes, which is always a bonus. Made of a little bit of line for the fuel filter to sit up there. Yeah, it's definitely not the lowest point of the car, so it won't be the first thing that hits the ground, which is always a good thing. So yeah, it's tucked up out the way. So now, like, all of the points are made, it's just a case of making up some AN hoses. In fact, I don't know if you can just see this, but just through the wheel there, you can just see where I've got my fittings. There we go. Yeah, so obviously all of those have got to basically come down to these points here and join up with these two hoses. So pretty straightforward now. I'm not going to show you any hose making because it's a bit dull, but once they're all done and ready to go on, we'll reconvene on camera. Right then folks, it's been a day and I have finished all of the fittings. So this side is all done, my extra fitting arrived. That's all finished, don't need to touch anything on here, just need to rewire it back in, nice and easy. Underneath, bear with me a moment, underneath all of the hoses are in. So the reason why there's a random red and blue one, well, I needed one of the fittings somewhere else, and that was another spare one that I had, and I thought rather than buy you know, more fittings just to have them the same colour underneath, I thought I'll just use what I've already got, hence why that's a different colour and a different angle. It still works, just yeah, obviously looks slightly different. And then all of the fuel hosing routes all down here, It's all sort of clumped together essentially, and obviously our bulkhead into the car. So that's all good. It's all tied up here. It's not moving anywhere. Jobs are good, and it's out the way of the wheel, out the way of the exhaust. All good. And then inside the car. So that's the other side of the bulkhead. So the only downside is I had to, sorry about that. I had to extend the hose. Probably there you can see about 4 inches just to give me enough length on it. I really didn't want to replace the whole length all the way up to the engine. Otherwise that was just a whole nother ball game of work. So 2 of those bulkheads there that just come out of the carpet, and then it feeds around and up, down on there by the gear stick and up behind the dash and into the bulkhead as normal. So we are done with fuel fittings for now. Happy days, pretty pleased with that. It took a bit of work to get it all right and get it all sitting nicely, but yeah, now for the test. You just need to wire the pump in and just check we've got no leaks. Right, I've exercised the in-tank pump about 7 or 8 times. We have got about 1.25 bar and a third maybe of pressure in there. So not the full 3 bar that it will get, but we've got no leaks. So yep, all good. Nothing dripping. Obviously I now need to swap the pump over properly, but yeah, no leaks, all good. Right, checked it again. I sent it up to 2 bar, 3 bar rather. It's on 2 bar now, and no leaks. I wasn't expecting any leaks, obviously, with the all new fittings, all new hoses. I just did a really quick and dirty wiring straight onto the battery as it's right there, just to exercise this pump. Jobs are good. And right, a few jobs left to do in here. First of all, we can peel off all my labels because don't need them anymore. That's all sorted. After that, I need to wire up the pump again. So my relay is just down there. You can see the fuse, the green fuse. That's the relay for this. It's on, obviously it's on a separate switch, as you might know. And then I need to figure out what to do with these 2 holes. Now I've got one of these, but it's a bit crusty and horrible. So I need to ask Sam if this is going to be okay, because he did give me this bit of carbon for another project. But I might ask him if I can cut a couple of circles out of that and yeah, make a couple of those. So we'll see. Right, Sam's given me the green light to make a couple of these from this carbon sheet. So the plan is to just cut these out the best I can. So we'll get my compass on, it's about that size. I've only put the green tape on because you can't see the pencil mark on the carbon. There we go, we'll cut 2 of those and then we'll think of a way to stick them down. One of them can probably be stuck down permanently, the other one will need a little access hole in for the wiring to go through. So I'm just thinking of a way, maybe just some like sticky back dabs on it just to keep it down. Right, let's cut that out. Right, all uncovered, and what I have done is just put some very thin 3M sticky tape stuff on the back so I can just dab them on, and if I need to peel them off I can do. Should hold them in place. Let's go and lob that one in and do the other one as well. There we go then. 2 carbon panels, just covering that, obviously purely aesthetic. So the last thing to do is just rewire this back in. And we're all done. Jobs are good done. Okay, we're all done in here now. Cleaned up, wired in, as it was before, so there's no reason why this shouldn't work. Let's just give it a quick test. Jobs are good then. Happy days. She works. So I don't think there's anything else left to do on this. The fuel system is done. The only thing I probably would like to just check is that with all the new hose lengths, the fuel pressure hasn't changed. But I'll do that when the car's running and when it's back on the floor. There we go, the Saxo fans. That is it for today. So, next episode, front splitter to match something that we got at the rear. And I have been playing with some 3D printing. So I will show you everything that I'm up to in there. Hoping if everything goes to plan, we're going to have some new billet stuff. Got to love a bit of billet, haven't you? So yeah, anyway, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave us some comments and some feedback, and I will see you again in the next one.